are now listening to Season 3 of the VMX Show. Hello everybody and welcome to the VMX Show. This is episode 3 of Season 3, so it's like World 3-3 of the game we call life. Or the VMX Show, or whatever. Seems like this season is dragging along, huh? I don't do it every other week. I generally do the show every week for those of you who are just joining with Season 3, which I know is a lot of you, because of it now being available straight on YouTube. But, extenuating circumstances have forced me to sometimes not do the show on a weekend. But here we are with episode 3. I got your questions and comments, got some great music to play. The song that opened the show, that was Fight It Out from the new Tactics Ogre game. Tactics Ogre Let Us Cling Together on PlayStation Portable, which I did manage to get GameStop's last copy of. Man, that was a bitch to find, especially that it came in late on release day, so that I had to come back the next day, and by then they'd sold most of their copies. I haven't played it yet, but if it's anything like that developer's previous PSP effort, which was the re-release of Final Fantasy Tactics, which is sort of a spiritual successor to Tactics Ogre, Final Fantasy Tactics The War of the Lions, which I logged at least 100 hours in. Got my guy up to level 94 before I finally beat the game. That was an amazingly fun strategy experience. If you're into strategy games and you're into Final Fantasy Tactics, specifically the original, Tactics Advance and Tactics Advance 2 War of the Lions were good games. Not War of the Lions, sorry, Grimoire of the Rift. But if you want to play something more like the original Final Fantasy Tactics, other than just the remake on PlayStation Portable, check out the Tactics Ogre game. The Tactics Ogre, sometimes called Ogre Battle games, are made by the same developer. As a matter of fact, when Square was looking to make a Final Fantasy game into sort of a real time, well, not a real, it's a turn-based strategy game, they said, well, let's call the people who did it best the people who made Ogre Battle and Tactics Ogre. So definitely check that out. If you can get it on PlayStation Portable, that's a huge deal. But supplies are going to be limited. It always works out that way. The old games on Super NES, PlayStation, and Nintendo 64 insanely expensive up on eBay. And as you heard, their great soundtrack to the game. Once again, that's Fight It Out. We'll be playing some more music. I was talking, I think, last episode about 3 games coming out on basically the same day. One of them was supposed to come out on Monday, but it sort of didn't. That was Dragon Quest VI Realms of Revelation on the DS, Tactics Ogre, Let Us Cling Together on the PlayStation Portable, and Marvel vs. Capcom 3 Fate of Two Worlds on Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. Did manage to get them all. Here's the thing about that. I'll be trying to play a song from each during the show. So that was Tactics Ogre. A little bit later in the show, we'll play a Marvel vs. Capcom 3 song and a Dragon Quest 6 song if I can get to it. A lot of stuff to talk about. So let's get to the questions and comments first. Here's a private message from Amaranthus616. He's asking me about Cyberpunk. He says, hey there, I got a question about something that I tend to ask people because it's something I quite like. Cyberpunk science fiction, be it novel, film, TV series, game, or even music. Some people consider agrotech to be under the theme, as it does tend to sing about topics the genre goes on about, and it also has that dark, harsh sound that fits the dystopian outlook, is something I take interest in. My musical interests aside, the question is a simple one. What is your favorite cyberpunk game, if any at all, or at least favorite science fiction game? Also, I apologize for having you play Outlander. I must admit it did take me a while to get into it. Well, Outlander seemed like a good enough game. I just don't think that it made, a decent video. But, cyberpunk is not something that I'm really into. I mean, I enjoy science fiction stuff. So, Well, actually, he says least favorite science fiction game. Well, that's weird. Why would you ask for my favorite cyberpunk game and then least favorite science fiction? I was prepared to tell you that my favorite science fiction game is the Metroid games, in specific, definitely Metroid Prime. But least favorite science fiction game, I've played so many crappy games that I couldn't even pin it down. I mean, wow, But I'm not really that much into the cyberpunk. It's not something that I think of as being like a big deal to me. So, sorry that I don't have a really good answer for you, but that's what's going on with that. Okay, let's see what we got for other questions and comments. This guy's got a long-ass name, WWE12345678990QQA. Dude, you could have come up with something better than that. He says, hey, NecroVMX, did you like the Waterboy movie, and do you like Are You There Yet? That was made by Ice Cube. I didn't see Are You There Yet? I saw the Waterboy, and it was kind of funny. I enjoyed Kathy Bates was in it, Henry Winkler was in it, from what I remember. It wasn't very good, but it was funny. I do like Adam Sandler, so I do try to see most of his movies. Let's see. And he also goes and asks, and for PSP games, do you like the Gods of War? I think he means God of War. Gods of War games, they're fun to play. I've never actually played any of the main series of God of War. I played the PSP one briefly, as my brother-in-law had it, and I was messing around with his PSP, and it seemed like the same basic ideas, Devil May Cry, but I haven't really gotten into those too much. And then he has another comment. Oh man, he keeps leaving comments. If you got like a lot of shit to say, try and put it all in one comment so that it's less confusing for me when I read it out. Then and try to spell things right, because sometimes it can make it difficult to say what you're trying to say. I mean, obviously here he's talking to me, but dude, you call me NecroVMX. It's not Nero, it's Necro. Just a heads up on that, no big deal. He says, hey, NecroVMX, me again. Have you played Mario Party 8? If not, you should play it. Fun. Wow. I've not played Mario Party 8. I've played other Mario Party games. I think I have 8. Let's see. Do I have 8? Oh, no, I don't have... Is that on the Wii? I think I don't have any of them on the Wii. I have pretty much all of them for GameCube, because I collect GameCube games. But I don't know if I have 8, because I'm not sure. I think that one's on the Wii. Fibonacci says, could you do a mini comparison between Oblivion and Morrowind for the next show? I will be playing Oblivion next week with my new PC, but maybe I should start with Morrowind instead. Well, it doesn't really matter what order you play them in, although it's part of a series, Morrowind being Part 3 and Oblivion being Part 4. It's not like an ongoing narrative. They take place in different eras. Those two are actually kind of close to each other, because I think that Oblivion takes place only about 20 years after Morrowind. By comparison, the next game, Skyrim, will take place 200 years after Oblivion. Oblivion had a lot of improvements to the gameplay that you kind of wish were in Morrowind, like regenerating magic, which makes it easier to play as a wizard character. The sneak button being a toggle instead of having to hold it down, more variety of enemies and such. But then a lot of these things, if you're playing on the PC, you can get mods, and there's a lot of mods out there that add things to Morrowind that make it more like Oblivion. The reason that I like Morrowind more is it's got a better atmosphere. It's a darker game. I enjoy the plot more because it still had text-based dialogue. I mean, there was voice acting in it, but usually that was only for like greetings and cutscenes and things like that. Well, Oblivion was all voice acting, but because of the sheer amount of voice acting they put in it, there's a lot less text, so people generally have a lot less to say in Oblivion, so you don't get as much detail. And I just felt that Morrowind was a richer experience, not to take anything away from Oblivion, which is one of the best games of that year, but it's hard to compare them because they're the same series, but at the same token, they're both very different. Probably the big difference that you'd notice right away is in the combat. In Oblivion, the combat is more action-based, meaning that if you swing your sword and it makes contact with an enemy, you hit the character, and then how much damage you do is determined by your skill with that weapon. So, example, if you swing a sword at an enemy, like a goblin or such, and you make contact, and then it says, well, your blade skill is this, and your strength is this, so this is the damage you're going to do to that goblin. While in Morrowind was more of a stat-based RPG where your skill with the weapon determined whether or not you made contact, and then your strength, for example, for blade, would determine how much damage you did. So that at first it could be kind of a little bit frustrating, because if you're not skilled with a weapon, you're going to be missing a lot. And you're saying, oh god, my sword's going right through the enemy. So it could kind of take you out of the immersion a little bit. But I think that in the long run, it's a more rewarding experience. I don't know. I think I like, the combat in Oblivion is better. The gameplay in general is smoother. But Morrowind just has better atmosphere, better plot, better characters. So that's kind of why I prefer that one. But it's close, It's not like Morrowind is leaps and bounds better than Oblivion. So that's my mini comparison, as you asked for. And that really doesn't do it justice. I can talk for hours on that. We don't have hours. Doughboy L.A. Langelis. I think he means Los Angeles, but there's a weird way of doing it. Doughboy Los Angeles asks, Necro, what are your thoughts on the Super NES game Earthbound? I don't like it. So let's move on. Let's see. I'm just trying to sift through the just generic comments. Not that I don't enjoy the comments, I just want to look for the questions. Here, Foxbang96 is back. Asks, my question for next week is, what does your family think about the whole YouTube thing you got going on? Well, they don't really, they're not really gamers, so they don't watch it, pretty much everybody knows that I do it, but for the most part, my family, they just, they see it as a hobby, which is exactly what it is. Something that keeps me occupied in some of the downtime that I have. But really, they'll watch a video or two here and there if it's something relevant. But generally speaking, a lot of my family they're not gamers like I am, so they don't really get into it that much. So that's to answer your question there. That's a good question. Nobody's ever asked that before. Chubby Luigi just has a comment. He was talking about the 3DS, says he wants to get one after the first price drop. I think the price is pretty good, $250, so you probably get, the first price drop will probably happen a couple of years after the system comes out, and it'll be $200, which is pretty reasonable as well. So if you want to wait, you want to wait. Peyote says, thanks for answering my question, Necro, and the story I mentioned was how you came up with the name NecroVMX, and don't worry about pronouncing the name. My friend came up and said Peyote, so it's all good. Whatever works, right? I don't get too sus. People call me Necro, they call me Necro, they call me Macro, they call me Nero, they call me anything. They call me Negro sometimes, so... there you have it. Sephiroth330 says, 2010 was a good year, 2011 sounds like it's going to be an excellent year for gaming. Terrible for our respective wallets. I look forward to this. Of course, referring to my... there's a dog barking. Referring to my minor little rant about free games coming out on the same day in February, which that's already passed, and then it happening again in April, when Final Fantasy IV Complete comes out on the same day as Conduit 2, and on the same day as, what's that other one? Mortal Kombat. Razarath92 says, what do the letters VMX stand for? Easy answer, they don't really stand for anything. JDM Kid 89 just says, thanks for answering my question. Well, you're welcome. JMeister25 says, wait, hold on. The beginning of that song sounds something like Rush would do. I'm not sure which song I played. And he says, but here's my question. What and why did you get into Dream Theater, and what was the first song you heard by them? Dream Theater, of course, being my favorite band. They're a progressive metal band from New York City. Or more accurately from Long Island, but they usually say New York City. I got into them, I want to say in 2001. There was a guy that I talked to. He was a friend then. He's not now. I don't talk to him anymore. But he got me into Dream Theater, and basically he was one of those people that just gets into something and then can't shut the fuck up about it for nothing. And it just got really irritating, and I was getting sick of hearing about Dream Theater. And he didn't realize that that's irritating when you do that, when you just constantly talk about how awesome something is, and it actually kind of turns the other person off to it, like they don't want to hear about it. But then he played me a little bit of Dream Theater, and I was impressed by it, and the first song that I ever heard that he played, I didn't hear the whole song, because he only played the first few minutes, but he played The Glass Prison, which just came out on the 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence album. And I kind of put a note in the back of my head saying, next time you're in a music store, pick up a Dream Theater album. And next time I was in was actually a long time later, at least a couple of months, and I didn't know what album to pick, so I just picked one at random. It turned out to be Falling Into Infinity. So the first full song I ever heard by them was New Millennium. And that album was pretty good. And then I wound up getting also 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence, which was pretty good. And then I got Scenes from a Memory, which was what really hooked me onto them. So that's how I got into Dream Theater. Dave Korn fan says, great episode, man. Thanks for reading out my comment. I was wondering if you have anything to say about Duke Nukem Forever, Hail to the King, baby. Or maybe I should say it like this, Hail to the King, baby. Of course, I don't believe it's coming out till I have it in my hands, and then I probably still won't believe it. Yeah, I'm probably going to feel the same way. It is coming out, and what really convinced me was that it has an ESRB rating. People are saying, oh, but it has a trailer, and I'm like, yeah, it had a trailer 12 years ago. They had a trailer for it. A really long, cool-looking trailer for it 12 years ago. So, why would I believe it just because there's a new trailer? But, the fact that it has an ESRB rating makes me think that, yeah, they're actually going to release this probably on the release date that they said they would. But you're going to be holding it in your hands. I'm going to be holding it in my hands and saying, is this for real? I saw the trailer. It looked kind of cool. I wasn't too fond of that vehicle stuff. That looked like Halo stuff to me. But then I realized that there's a part of the game where Duke shrinks down, and those are little RC cars he's driving. So that's kind of amusing. So I'm kind of interested in that. So, yeah. Let's see. Killer Clock says, Morrowind, blue screen, 2 separate computers, and crashed an Xbox. other than that, it seemed pretty fun. Oblivion was pretty good with only some flawed AI to complain about. Got high hopes for Skyrim. Morrowind was... all their games are buggy. Morrowind was a bit buggy, but there are actually patches you can get for the PC version that will reduce the amount of issues that you'll get. And actually, I found that anybody who's out there who's been playing Morrowind or had played Morrowind knows this. When you're walking around and maybe you haven't saved in a while, that's when it crashes. And I actually found out a little bit about the game's code because I was researching into how to reduce this. And I actually found out that not saving the game is actually what causes it to do that. So actually, part of the issue with that Gamebryo engine and everything is that if you don't save it for a long time, it will actually crash to the desktop. So you can actually reduce your hassles by saving more often, which goes to why games like Oblivion and Fallout 3 don't crash as much, because they save themselves automatically almost every time you go through a door. Let's see. I love this name here. This guy's username is I love me some wet pussy. Well, who doesn't, really? I just love your username, man. That's great. I love me some wet pussy. So he says, hey, Necro, first off, forgive my spelling errors. Secondly, I forgive you, my son. Now, secondly, I remember you saying you lost old episodes of your VMX show. I have episode 1 of season 1. If you still needed that one. But okay, I'm going to just say right now, I now have, for anybody out there, I now have all the episodes of season 1, and I'm going to be probably putting them up on YouTube as, classic season 1 stuff after season 3 is over. So, thank you to everybody that sent me episodes. Thank you to everybody that offered to send me episodes. But it is no longer an issue, so there you go. Roy's Story has 2 questions. I'm going to skip the first one because it's not relevant anymore. And he asks me, the second question is, what are your thoughts on the recent news of Activision possibly killing the Guitar Hero franchise? Well, I was going to actually go over that in the news for this week's show, but I think it's a terrible thing that they did this, especially that Guitar Hero Warriors of Rock, which was the 6th game in the main series, was so really, really good. It was the best Guitar Hero game, and I felt that it was a lot more fun than Rock Band 3. They did put out too many games in too little time. They milked it. They abused it. And that's a shame. There's a market out there. And the problem with Activision is if they don't sell millions and millions of copies, they look at it as a failure. They say, yeah, Guitar Hero, Warriors of Rock, and Rock Band 3 both sold lower than projected. But we're living in an era where people don't need as many guitar games. The economy is poor, and like I brought up in a previous episode, most of the user base are the casuals who started off on PlayStation 2. They invested in a whole bunch of expensive instrument controllers for PlayStation 2, and now that you're releasing games obviously not for PlayStation 2, the casuals have to make a choice. Am I going to trade all this stuff in and then buy a whole bunch of stuff for Xbox 360, and then all these old games I have, you can't play them anymore, maybe you have to rebuy some of them and then get the new games? Or do I just say, it was fun, but that's it? They're casual gamers, they're not really that invested in it, so they may not make that upgrade. So it makes sense that the games would not make as much money as, say, Guitar Hero 3 Legends of Rock, which was the first video game to ever make $1 billion. So that being said, I think that hopefully what we can see is that there won't be any Guitar Hero games for a while, and that we'll see some sort of reboot to the series, and we'll bring it back, hopefully better than ever, hopefully fresher, hopefully people will have time to kind of cool out about the whole thing, and hopefully our instruments will still work. So that's my thoughts on that. Let's see. All Good Music 42 says, hey, Necro, great podcast. Keep up the good work. On the topic of comics, I just finished reading Watchmen for the first time, which was a great read, and I'm curious, which of the 2 Alan Moore books would you recommend reading next? V for Vendetta or The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen? Well, I would recommend the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but just make sure you're getting the first one because there's actually a couple of those books. But I would definitely say League of Extraordinary Gentlemen is the better of the two, the more fun of the two. Just the movie, you may want to see it just for fun, but it has nothing to do with anything. So don't judge it by that if maybe you've seen the movie. So that's it for questions and comments. If you have any questions or comments, leave them on the YouTube video that has this podcast. Send me an email, a private message, anything you want. Just tell me you have a question for the show, and as long as it's relevant, we'll read it in the next episode, and I'll try to answer you. So give me comments on the show, give me questions to answer. Gimme, 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 I want more. Let's listen to some music. Here's a song from Marvel vs. Capcom 3. This is Arthur's theme. Yeah, Arthur's theme from Marvel vs. Capcom 3. Of course, Arthur the Knight from the Ghosts and Goblins series. Do have a Ghosts and Goblins feature coming up on the horizon, probably a couple of months from now, on the channel. It's going to be an anthology where I play not only each game, but several versions of each game. So that should be interesting. I have an announcement to make actually about the YouTube schedule, because I don't know if anybody really noticed, but I did make a change to it. Previously had an unannounced feature, which is now announced. But let me go through really quick what's coming up on the horizon. Of course, we're still entrenched in Comic-Thon, which will go on for another 8 days until the end of February. And that's been really, really popular and really fun. So, glad everybody's enjoying Comic-Thon. After that is the Lufia 2 Rise of the Sinistrals playthrough, Ghosts and Goblins feature, the Castlevania Circle of the Moon feature, Let's Fail at Super Meat Boy, and then we're going to have the Mortal Kombat feature, which is going to be an anthology, as many versions as I can find of each game in the series. And I know, some people are like, oh, why do you play the same game over and over? But with the fighting game, I feel that actually offers the opportunity to play as more characters. So, like, for example, I might take the first Mortal Kombat and play as Sub-Zero for the arcade version, play as Scorpion for the Genesis one, play as Johnny Cage for the Game Boy one, play as Raiden for the Game Gear one, like that. And that way you could see more characters. So, that's what's going on with that. Of course, the later games are only offered on consoles, and I can only show you what I have. For example, Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe was released on the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3, but I only have Xbox 360, so I can't show you the PS3 version. So there's that. Oh, there was a question, there was a comment that I skipped, but that's coming up in the news, my answer to that, so don't worry about that. But I want to let you guys know a little bit of announcement. Mortal Kombat Anthology. Have that at the end. That's going to be down the line later in the year. But just want to let you know. And of course, the new Mortal Kombat game will be part of that, and that's part of what I wanted to talk to you about. Now, I meant to do this part of this last week because the episode was supposed to come out last week, and I wanted to talk about the lineups for Marvel vs. Capcom 3 and for Mortal Kombat. Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is already out, but for those of you who didn't get it, I want to go over the lineup anyway. The final lineup has 36 characters that you can play as, with a 37th character being the end boss, and 2 characters that are available as downloadable content, and that there will be more downloadable content characters in the future. So, for those of you who are wondering about the full roster who haven't picked up the game yet, here's what's going on. For the Marvel side, the full roster includes Captain America, of course, from the Avengers, Deadpool, very popular Marvel character, Doctor Doom, a villain from the Fantastic Four series, Dormammu, a villain usually associated with Doctor Strange. He kind of plays like Blackheart. The Hulk, of course, another sort of Avengers character. Everybody knows who the Hulk is. Iron Man, another Avengers character. Magneto, a villain from the X-Men. MODOK is an old villain that appeared in a lot of comics, most usually Captain America. He's that guy that's just a big head with little tiny arms and legs. It's actually kind of funny. There's Phoenix from the X-Men. Sentinel, an X-Men villain. She-Hulk, of course, the Hulk's female counterpart, his cousin Jennifer, who turns into the She-Hulk. Although I think now they have it where she's always the She-Hulk. So, Spider-Man, of course everybody knows Spider-Man. Storm from the X-Men. Super Skrull, a villain who usually appears in the Fantastic Four comics. The Taskmaster, a sometimes hero, sometimes villain, appears in the Deadpool comics a lot. He's sort of a mercenary. Thor, of course, from the Avengers. Wolverine from the X-Men. And X-23, also from the X-Men comics. And the first downloadable content character will be Shuma Gorath, a villain from the Doctor Strange series that was in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. He's that eyeball tentacle monster thing. On the Capcom side, we have Akuma from the Street Fighter series, Albert Wesker from the Resident Evil series, I guess it's Amaterasu, actually. Amaterasu from the Okami games, Okami and Okami Den. Arthur, of course, from Ghosts and Goblins. We were just talking about that briefly, and I played his theme song. Chris Redfield, also from Resident Evil. Chun-Li from Street Fighter. Crimson Viper from Street Fighter. Dante from the Devil May Cry series. Felicia from the Darkstalker series. Seiyan-Ko from the Darkstalker series. Mike Hagar from the Final Fight series. Morrigan Ainsland from the Darkstalker series, Nathan Spencer from the Bionic Commando series. I wonder if he's considered the same character as Super Joe. Ryu from the Street Fighter series, Trish from the Devil May Cry series, Trombone from the Mega Man Legends or Rockman Dash series, Beautiful Joe from his own series, and Zero from the Mega Man X games. So, and the first downloadable Capcom character is Jill Valentine from Resident Evil. The last boss is Galactus. He's a villain from Marvel Universe, usually goes up against the Fantastic Four. So that's what's going on with that. Mortal Kombat is coming out in April, and we don't know all the characters yet. As a matter of fact, we're not even sure how many characters. They said roughly 26 characters will be there. So far, we know of 22 characters that are definitely confirmed, either via official announcements or in-game footage that we've seen. So here's what we know so far, and these are all characters that appeared in the first 3 Mortal Kombat games, as this is a reimagining of the first 3 games. Baraka, he was in Mortal Kombat 2. Cyrax, he was in 3. Ermac from Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. Jade, she was in 2. Jack, I'm not going to even say what everyone was in. They were all either in 1, 2, 3, or Ultimate 3. So I'm just going to go through them. Baraka, Cyrax, Ermac, Jade, Jax, Johnny Cage, Kano, Kitana, Kung Lao, Liu Kang, Melina, Nightwolf, Noob Saibot, Raiden, Reptile, Scorpion, Sector, Shang Tsung, Sindel, Sonya, Stryker, and Sub-Zero. And the bosses will include Goro and Shao Kahn. Nobody knows if they're playable. I believe they won't be. I believe that I saw Ed Boon say on his Twitter that he'd rather have them not be playable because there's a sort of mystique to them then. But who knows? Who knows? But the reason that people think that there's 26 characters is because there was a shot of the character select screen with most of them being locked up, and it looks like there was 26 total boxes there, with 1 box for a random select and 2 for downloadable content. Don't know who the downloadable content characters are going to be, but Ed Boon has been polling people on his Twitter, so if you want to have a say in it and say who you would rather see as downloadable content characters, go to Ed Boon's Twitter, which is twitter.com/noobd. That's Ed Boon backwards, to check that out, and maybe leave him a comment telling him who you'd like to see in the new Mortal Kombat game. And of course we know that Kratos is going to be there in the PlayStation 3 version as a Versus-only character exclusive to that version. Of course, those of us who have the Xbox 360 and plan on getting the game on Xbox 360 have been wondering, will there be a 360 character that is exclusive? Which would kind of make it like Soul Calibur, where Soul Calibur 2 had, where Link was in the GameCube version, Spawn was in the Xbox version, and the PlayStation 2 version had Heihachi. Or Soul Calibur 4, which had Yoda in the 360 version and Darth Vader in the PlayStation 3 version. So Kratos appearing there, he fits in perfectly, I think, for Mortal Kombat. He's appearing there, not in the story mode, only in Versus mode for Mortal Kombat. And from what I've heard, Ed Boon wants to do an Xbox 360 character, an exclusive character, but it just hasn't happened yet. So there you have it. And guys, don't yell at him about that. He doesn't have too much control over it. He may want to do something, and the people who own the characters, such as, Master Chief or Marcus Phoenix, who are usually the two that are touted as being kind of contenders, they may not want him to be in Mortal Kombat. So try to keep that in mind, since I was talking about Marvel vs. Capcom 3, by the way, everybody has been asking me what I think of it. I think I pretty much, I did a video on it, and I pretty much answered that question in the video. But people will still ask me, it's a great game, go buy it. I do want to lament the Versus series. I mean, it's great. We had X-Men vs. Street Fighter, Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and now 3. And, but there are other aspects to it. I mean, we've had Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, which came out early last year, and Street Fighter X Tekken and Tekken X Street Fighter coming out later this year, possibly. But remember what happened to Capcom vs. SNK? I really enjoyed Capcom vs. SNK 2 particularly. Never got my hands on SVC Chaos. Still looking for a very rare game, no matter what console you're looking for it on. Of course, I would prefer to have it on PS2. But, man, I wish there could be a fourth game in that series. Well, maybe they would call it 3, since SVC Chaos wasn't called Capcom vs. SNK 3. But, then again, I would want it to be, 2D. But then again, SNK tends to keep it 2D. King of Fighters 13 coming out. Think about it, Capcom. Think about it, SNK. Also, speaking of crossover games, of course, Mortal Kombat did Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe. And people have been asking Ed Boon, will you ever do another crossover? And he wants to do it. It's just that, who will want to do it with him? Who will want to have their characters in there in a Mortal Kombat game? Will they have fatalities? Will these licensees allow their characters to have fatalities performed on them or to perform characters? And, he said he'd love to do Mortal Kombat with Killer Instinct, Mortal Kombat with Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat with Marvel characters, Mortal Kombat with Tekken. He'd love to do more crossovers. Obviously, Mortal Kombat versus Street Fighter would be huge. And somebody asked him on his Twitter recently, if you did that, would the Street Fighter characters have violent fatalities? And he said, well, that's part of the problem. That's the quandary. And also, would Capcom allow a game where violent fatalities are performed on their characters? Do they really want a game where you could rip off Chun-Li's head? That's a question that, Capcom may say no to, and they may be right to say that. But I do lament the lack of new Capcom vs. SNK games, because I did enjoy those greatly. Another thing I wanted to talk about is I recently read an interview with the creators of Dragon Quest, which was over on, I think, Games Radar, and they were talking about mostly Dragon Quest VI. Dragon Quest VI just came out. It is great. And now the series is complete. You can now play 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, all American versions, all in English. Of course, what I would like to see is another re-release of the first 3 games. Because the last time we got Dragon Quest 1 and 2 was on Game Boy Color, and Dragon Quest 3 was on Game Boy Color, and those were still called Dragon Warrior. And I would like to see updated versions. Maybe they can do them all on one DS card or something. And of course, 7 was released here as Dragon Warrior 7 very late in the PlayStation era. Didn't sell too well. I think it would go over gangbusters now. And I've been thinking personally that I would love to see a version of Dragon Quest 7 for the 3DS. And if anybody at Square Enix hears this, do that. That would be so cool for the 3DS. And it's interesting because the interviewer did ask, hey, the next one would be Dragon Quest 7. That's never been remade. Is that a possibility? And their answer was like, well, when the time is right. I think the 3DS offers a monumental opportunity to do Dragon Quest VII. In case anybody's wondering, if you do want to get all the games, most of them are for handhelds now. Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3 under the names as Dragon Warrior 1, 2, and 3, all available on Game Boy Color. So you'd probably want to play those on like a Game Boy player for the GameCube, or if you have an old Game Boy Advance. DS, even the DS original will not play Game Boy Color games. So that's what's up with that. That's another thing. There's no modern way to play them, so they should re-release those. Dragon Quest 4, 5, and 6 as Chapters of the Chosen, Hand of the Heavenly Bride, and Realms of Revelation, all available on the Nintendo DS. Dragon Quest 7, only available on the PlayStation 1. I guess you can play that on a PS3. Dragon Quest 8, of course, for PlayStation 2, and 9 on the DS. Dragon Quest 10 coming sometime in the future. Can't say soon, don't know when, but that's coming for the Nintendo Wii. We don't know anything about it, other than that it will be a main entry in the series and that it's on the Wii. So we'll see. The next thing I wanted to talk about, and somebody did ask me a question about this, but I'll bring it up here. People have been asking me about the Dead Island trailer, if I've seen it, what I thought about it. I did get to see it just a couple of days ago, and I gotta say I was blown away by the entire thing. The concept, the graphics, the atmosphere, the music. I'm definitely interested in this game. It's a zombie game. It takes place on a tropical island, which is kind of cool because zombies, usually they do that in a city. A tropical island is sort of an interesting thing, and they kind of did that with the new Dead movie that came out last year. But yeah, Dead Island looks really cool. And I was watching it. It was a CGI trailer. Obviously, it's FMV, but the graphics looked so advanced. I knew it would be for PC. And I thought maybe they could squeeze this onto a PlayStation 3, but I don't know if it would still look that good. But it turns out that it's coming out also for Xbox 360, which is kind of exciting because the graphics look like beyond anything that I thought the Xbox 360 was capable of. Then again, the 360 sometimes just surprises me, so who knows? Don't know if you guys could hear it. My nephew crying in the background. So that, yeah, I definitely thought the Dead Island trailer was really cool looking. It's been a little bit controversial, the trailer that is, because it's very bloody and gory, and you're saying, well, it's a zombie game, of course it's bloody and gory, it's probably going to be M-rated, what's the big deal about that? Well, this is a commercial. Maybe not one that's going to air on TV, but it is an advertisement, and for the most part, advertisements have usually been kept, G-rated or PG at the very least, and here they are with blood gushing out of wounds, guy throwing his zombie daughter out the window, and people are saying, should they do this to sell the game? I thought it looked great, but they're saying, oh, well, if a kid sees this, he's going to want to play it, and, well, yeah, kids are always going to want to play violent video games, and it really is the parents' responsibility to, A, watch what their kids are doing online, monitor their behavior, monitor where they go. This is their responsibility. They're kids. They're supposed to... You can't just plug your kid in front of a computer and let him do what he wants. It's just like, you can't plug a kid in front of a television and let the TV raise him. It doesn't work like that. That's irresponsible parenting. It's not the responsibility of the companies to cater to everybody. So that's my thoughts on that. I wanted to talk briefly, I mentioned this earlier, Duke Nukem Forever, but I wanted to talk briefly about an interesting promotion, speaking of adult promotions. There's a Las Vegas strip club, I don't know the name of the club, but they rebranded it as a Duke Nukem's Titty City. I love that name, by the way, Duke Nukem's Titty City, and they've had some corporate events there and promotions and whatnot for Duke Nukem Forever. So if you're ever in Las Vegas, you might be able to stop at a Duke Nukem's Titty City. I'm not sure exactly where or what club it was beforehand, but there you have it. Back to commercials, because I was talking about the ad for Dead Island. Has anybody seen the ad for Minecraft? Of course, Minecraft has been around for a while in alpha form, and it's this PC game that's played pretty much in a browser, played online. Primitive graphics. It looks like like the first Doom game, but it's said to be very addictive and very fun. Of course, it's all about building and mining and everything. I love the commercial for it. You guys got to look this up. Go on YouTube and type in Minecraft commercial. They start off with this guy, it's a black guy with all the gold and the diamonds and everything. He's covered in diamonds and he's walking around and doing all the rapper poses, and they got this hip hop music going, and it's filmed in a wide angle lens. All the hip hop stuff is always filmed with a wide angle lens. And then this little kid, this little boy, must have been about 12, comes running at this rapper guy, knocks him to the ground, and starts popping him in the face and going, "Diamonds!" And a block of diamonds, just like in Minecraft, comes out of the guy's head. And and the kid is running and grabbing the diamonds, and the guy's like, yo kid, come back here. It's very funny. If you want diamonds, go punch a rapper, I guess. Because that's how Minecraft works. You go and you punch a tree and you get a block of wood. You punch a pig, you get, I guess, a block of ham, You could use mining tools to make it go faster. I haven't played Minecraft, not really my thing. My friend Joey was hopelessly addicted to it until the people that he played with started being, really lame, and he gave it up. But just look that up. Very, very cool video. Here's some news. Danger Clothes, I should say, which sounds weird. Danger Close is the developer who made the Medal of Honor modern reboot game. They are making a new Medal of Honor game. We do not have a title or anything, but they say that the new Medal of Honor game will be very closely based on user feedback, and they're excited about it. We don't know anything about it, like what console. I assume it's going to be on Xbox 360 and PS3 and possibly PC. But really, right now, all we know is they're working on it. So for those of you who are Medal of Honor fans, that's good news. Let's see, what else do we have here? Tomorrow is President's Day. It's February 21st, President's Day. It's also the 25th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda. Wow, huh? 25 years since the release of The Legend of Zelda on the NES, and we've seen a lot of different games since then. No news yet about, if Nintendo was going to be doing anything to commemorate The Legend of Zelda's 25th anniversary, but a lot of websites are doing some cool features and retrospectives and stuff. I've been working on my Legend of Zelda retrospective called The History of Zelda on and off for the past few months. It's not ready yet. I would say it's about halfway done, but I'm hoping to get it out, sometime before they release Skyward Sword. But, yeah, just want to let you guys know about that, and certain ones of you who are like me are now feeling very, very old. Yeah. Oh well, what can you do about it? That's a normal thing, right? Talked about Guitar Hero before. I was going to do it in the news, but somebody asked me the question about it. But just want to touch on that again. There will be no future Guitar Hero games, according to Activision, who has laid off over 500 employees and closed the division that makes Guitar Hero games, saying there are no plans to continue the series. Red Octane's former CEO, Kelly Summer, had some choice words to say about it. This is what he says about Guitar Hero and what happened to the series. He says, "It was brilliant. Everybody wants to be a rock star, and there was nothing like it on the market at the time. Best of all, it involved everybody in the room. It was a great party experience. But Activision tried to get too much out of the franchise too quickly. They abused it. There's no reason why Guitar Hero cannot continue. It's a great product. My gut tells me there is still a significant market for Guitar Hero." So he's kind of saying the same thing that I said, which makes sense. I agree with him fully. Not every game can be a billion-dollar franchise, but maybe that's what Activision wants. And I gotta agree with him there. I think that's definitely what Activision wants. I'd be surprised if they sold the brand, as it'd prove to the world that there is still a market for this product and show them up. And he also talks about Take-Two. He says, look at how Take-Two has handled Grand Theft Auto. They haven't thrown products out there. They've nurtured it for over 10 years, and it's still a strong franchise. Well, Activision has a lot to learn about things. I mean, it's kind of weird to say that. They were the original third-party developer. For those of you who don't know, Activision was formed by ex-employees of Atari who were fed up at the way Atari was doing business and said, we're going to make our own company, we're going to make our own games, and we're going to release them for the Atari 2600. And Atari said, no, well, you can't release games for our consoles, and they sued them in court. They lost, and this created the third-party developer. Activision were the first. And they were putting out games that were of a higher quality than what Atari was pumping out. So, to see them have come to this point where they really need to learn about the game industry and how things work and what consumers want, it's kind of sad. Got some bad news for fans of BioShock 2. The downloadable content, which had been available for Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 for quite some time, is now available for PC. Don't buy it, though. Don't buy it. It's the Protector Trials expansion, which was released on the Games for Windows Marketplace for $5.75. But guess what? It doesn't work. At all. At all. It's not compatible with BioShock 2. They need a patch. A representative from 2K Games said, wait till my word before you go grab it. It's not ready yet. Wow. That's amazing. How did they release it? Why did they release it? Big, epic failure on 2K Games' part. Wow. Man, that's just terrible. Well, I got a little bit more news, and we're going to go over the sales figures in the show, but before I did that, I want to play you some music. I promised you guys some Dragon Quest VI music. So here we're going to play a Dragon Quest VI song. This is called Brave Fight. Coming at you, the VMX Show. Great game, great soundtrack, and finally, the final Lost Dragon Quest game available on the DS. Highly recommended for those fans of old school RPGs. Right after I'm done with the show, I'm probably going to go play it. Got some more news. We're going to wrap up the show. Bad news for PlayStation 3 owners who'd like to play online. And there's a nasty little rumor going around. Some of it has indeed been confirmed, not all of it. This all started. Sony recently decided to permanently ban all modified PlayStation 3 consoles from their PSN network. So players who have modded their PlayStation 3 cannot get online onto the PSN marketplace, nor can they play games over PlayStation Network. And obviously they're doing this in response to hackers, crackers, and of course cheaters. That there are people who have legitimately modded their consoles, for things like installing Linux, which was originally, if you guys remember, a documented feature of the PlayStation 3 that you could do that. Now they're trying to disable it with every new update, and they're saying if you mod your PlayStation 3, we're going to ban you. And this could problematically even create issues with playing offline games. Now supposedly some hackers have responded to this by being able to hack their PlayStation 3s and hack into the network and unban themselves. And it's been said that they do this by changing their console ID so that they can't be detected. Now, there's a nasty little rumor going around. This is the rumor part of it. That was the confirmed part of it. They're saying, these hackers are saying, by the way, they're just fighting back against Sony. Sony's being assholes, and Sony's sticking by the rules that they laid down, their licensing agreements. But the end user licensing agreement is open for interpretation as well. Of course. I mean, remember, one time they advertised that you could install Linux on your PlayStation 3 if you wanted to, and now they're saying if you do this, we're going to ban you. But here comes the rumor part. The rumor part is that Supposedly, hackers have found a way to ban other users from PSN by changing their IDs to IDs that have been banned. And how did they get the gamer's console ID? Well, they would either have to get it from the retailers who have sold them or the player themselves. So, nobody knows if this is really true, but if it is, and I'm going to issue a caution here to everybody, don't give out your console ID to anybody over the internet. If they're claiming to work for Sony, they don't need you to tell them the console ID. They can see it on their own. So there's no reason that anybody would ever legitimately ask you for your console ID. The only way I can think of is maybe if you're talking to Sony customer support on the phone and you're having a problem. That's different. But don't ever give it to anybody on PSN, on the internet. Just don't do it. It would be like giving your PIN number away. Very foolish. Could only lead to problems. Don't do it. More PlayStation is PlayStation 2 has officially sold 150 million units, making it, of course, one of the biggest selling consoles of all time. And the PlayStation 2 really is one of the biggest consoles of all time. It has a library of nearly 11,000 games, and it sold 1.52 billion games since the system launched in 2000. We're now on the 11th year of the PlayStation. Of course, that was the release in Japan, March 2000. The top-selling PlayStation 2 game of all time remains to be Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, which has sold over 17 million copies. Probably more than that. That number's kind of old, actually. By comparison, the PlayStation 3 has quite a lot of catching up to do. They've sold about 47.9 million units, so of course they haven't been around for 10 years. So we'll see what's going on with that. But just wanted to give you that statistic there. It's kind of eye-popping. Speaking of video games and sales, I always try to end the show with video game sales figures. Now, I'm now getting them from a different source because the source that I had been getting them from proved to be somewhat unreliable and that I was always have to hunt down the information. So I have a different source. You're pretty much going to get the same information that you always got, except now I can only tell you the top 10 for game sales, and I can't tell you whether they dropped or rose unless I did a lot of backtracking, so I'm not going to bother with that. The good news is I can now not only give you Japanese sales figures, but also American Japanese sales figures. So for the week ending in February 13th, here are the top 10 best-selling games in Japan. At number 1, Tales of the World Radiant Mythology 3. I'm sorry, the whole thing wasn't coming up there. Tales of the World Radiant Mythology 3 for PlayStation Portable moved 216,050 units for the number 1 spot. At number 2 is Sengoku Musou 3Z. That's a weird title, but there you go. That's on the PlayStation 3, and they moved 212,796 units. At number 3 on the PlayStation Portable is Monster Hunter Portable 3rd, which is also called Monster Hunter Freedom 3, 96,119 units moved. On number 4, Gyakuten Kenji 2 moved 33,039 units on the Nintendo DS. At number 5, Little Big Planet 2 for the PlayStation 3 moved 24,633 units. At number 6, Sengoku Musou 3 Mushoden, also known as Samurai Warriors 3 Extreme Legends. That's on the Wii, and they moved 23,843 units. Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare for PlayStation 3 moved 23,009 units. At number 8, Donkey Kong Returns, or Donkey Kong Country Returns, as it's known in America, for the Wii, moved 16,005 units. On the PlayStation Portable, Kenka Banshu 5 Otoko no Hosuku moved 14,518 units. That's on the PlayStation Portable. And at number 10, also on the PlayStation Portable, is, you know what, I'm not even going to try and say it in Japanese. Here's the American name, White Knight Chronicles Episode Portable Dogma Wars. Moved 11,362 units. In America, for the week ending on February 12th, it's slightly different in America. Test Drive Unlimited 2 for the Xbox 360 was the top-selling game with 107,441 units. Number 2, Kinect Adventures for Xbox 360 moved 79,767 units. At number 3, Wii Sports for the Wii moved 74,456 units. Number 4, Wii Sports Resort, also for the Wii, moved 58,532 units. At number 5, Dead Space 2 for Xbox 360 moved 54,739 units. At number 6, Just Dance 2 for the Wii moved 51,579 units. At number 7, Call of Duty Black Ops for Xbox 360 moved 50,061 units. At number 8, Mario Sports Mix for the Wii moved 45,515 units. At number 9, Test Drive Unlimited 2 for PlayStation 3 moved 40,909 units. And at number 10, Call of Duty Black Ops for PlayStation 3 moved 38,431 units. So there you go. And for hardware charts, in Japan, the number one selling console for the week ending in February 12th was the PlayStation Portable with 105,441 units. Coming in second, a long second there, PlayStation 3 sold 27,152 units. The DS sold 26,768 units. The Wii sold 15,059 units. And the Xbox 360 sold 2,282 units. In America, of course, things are very different. The Xbox 360, number one selling console of last week with 135,447 units sold, followed by the DS with 82,059 units, the Wii with 74,456 units, the PlayStation 3 with 66,449 units, and the PSP coming in dead last, as opposed to first by miles in Japan, with 23,443 units sold. Worldwide figures, I'm not going to give you the numbers, but worldwide, right now the Xbox 360 is Grand King Poobah of consoles, but it's close. PlayStation 3 following close behind, the DS very close behind, then the PSP and the Wii, all of them kind of bunched up together, so, all balanced out. They're all pretty much selling the same, but Xbox 360 coming out a little bit ahead. So that's going to be the show. Hope you enjoyed it. Give me your questions and comments. Let me know what you think. Leave me comments. Send me PMs, emails, whatever you want. And we'll see you next week. VMX out.